Salam bacha! How are you guys? So good to see you one more afternoon in this tiny corner, which is the streaming of Las Plumas de Simur. Welcome. You are so much welcome here. You know, as always, hello Shalom Aaron. As always, as I am occupying myself with technicalities, please let me know if you can hear me and if you can see me properly. Hello, oh my god, there's a lot of people here. There's a lot of known people. There's Aaron, there's Dorica, there's David, and there's Billy. It's so good to see you one more time. So, all good? Do we have confirmation that everything's correct? Yeah, we can see your background as well. Isn't it pretty? Isn't it beautiful? It is, if you ask me. All right, all good in the hood. Okay, so we can start in no time. How are you guys? How is this week started for you? My week has started a little bit hectic though. Yesterday was a busy day. It was a tiny bit of a busy Monday, but all good. Nothing to worry about. So, first and foremost, thank you so much to all the new people we have here in the family. Hello, Claire. Thank you to the people who followed and who subscribed to my channel. You help me a lot. And remember, if you've been subscribed to me in the past via Amazon Prime, you need to renew your subscription if you wish to support me one more month. Much appreciated. It's something nice to have a book up here. And that brings me to the next topic on my list, which is thank you to my patrons, especially those of Tier Murshid. Thank you so much, guys, for being interactive with me, for being like, we have such a good laugh in Patreon. If you want to support me on Patreon, just go ahead, just have a look. And thank you to my patrons. Oh, you good? I actually have somebody to show you here. I am not alone today. Come here, baby. Okay. May I introduce you to Sombra? Oh, this is Sombra and this is our pet. No, it's not Gilgamesh. Her name is Sombra, which means shadow in Spanish. And yeah, she was taking a nap under my feet, but now she's awoken from the nap. So yeah, she's pointy ears. Do you want to go? Yeah, stay there. Just napping. Napping all over the place. So yeah, that was her. What was I saying before? Oh yeah, thank you to my patrons. You help me so much, guys. Thank you for your support. You do an amazing job. I see most of you have recognized her. She might be coming and going because, you know, if you have a pet, be it a dog or a cat, you know, they're independent. So especially this one, which is very independent. So yeah, if you see me turn into that direction, is because I want to make sure she doesn't eat the rest of the room as I am distracted with something else. So I said Twitch, I said Patron, and that is basically for my introduction today. Actually, this topic, one more thing before moving on, is that if you support me on Patreon and you reach the tier Murshid, you can actually vote for the new content that you want me to talk about in streams. And this has been a topic chosen by my patrons, so I hope they will enjoy it. And next in the list, I know you guys are all waiting for this, I just know, it's what am I drinking today? I am a classic person. I just like my dark tea a lot, and this is just a black Turkish tea. There's no more magic to it, but it's like, I like my classics. So yeah. Still very warm. I still do not learn my lesson. And also, I want to give a shout out to someone very special that's actually here next to me, showing me his support as always. I have Bob here with me, so if you... But he's gonna be joining us in the stream. Not really, he's not going to, but she's just there minding his own businesses and being as happy as always and very supportive. So cold drinks, ice cream. Are you having ice cream? That makes me very jealous. Good but stressful, just at home at the online conference and drinking loads and loads of tea. Typhoon knows the way to success. Are you in the conference? Pay attention, woman. So good to have you all here. I am very happy to have you all here. So without further ado, let's just dive into it. I am so looking forward to today's session because it's about one of the topics I like the most, which is bursting myths. That's it. That is basically it. Because today we're going to talk about what's possibly one of the worst treated figures by historiography from the history of Iran, and that is Xerxes I, the third king of the Achaemenid dynasty. It is poorly treated, in my opinion, and there is not much reason to it apart from him being defeated in some battles in his campaign in Greece, which is perfectly correct. It is correct, it happened. But just judging the whole rulership and the whole reign of a king based on that, taking under account the massive amount of important things Xerxes actually did back in Iran, in his empire, I think it's a little bit unfair, to say the least. So I want guys to give you something to think about. I want to give you another perspective on someone as important as Xerxes. It's important to me, and you know I've never in my life hidden my preferences in this Twitch channel. My likes and dislikes, and I like Xerxes a lot. I think he's a very interesting figure. Very poorly treated, as I say, but very, very interesting. So let's just dive into it, shall we? Oh, I'm genuinely excited. So excited. So, Xerxes, first, what's to say first? Oh yeah, Xerxes is not his actual name. We do not know what his name was to this date. And this is because when Achaemenid kings reached the throne, they adopted a nickname, kind of a title, if you may. And this one was Xerxes, which I am attempting to read in the original. I'm just gonna butcher it, so bear with me. The original name of Xerxes is Xerxes I, which is very difficult for me to pronounce, and that literally means that who rules upon heroes, which is, in my opinion, one of the coolest titles to have ever. Basically that's it. And who is Xerxes? Xerxes is the son of Darius the Great, Darius the First, who is, of course, one of the highest highlighted personalities in the dynasty of the Achaemenids. Xerxes was born between, we think it's 518 before Common Era, you know, year up, year down, we're quite not sure. And as I was saying before, he's possibly the Achaemenid king with the worst fame in the whole Achaemenid history. And much of that terrible propaganda starts with maybe someone you have in mind already. If you guessed Herodotus, you are indeed correct. That is correct. Herodotus was one of the Greek historians by the time. Do not think that at that time we can refer as historians as we do today. They were kind of historians because history is being made, and historians, the figure of the historian has been always there to just gather. I am seeing in the chat box, so you're saying Gerard Butler and Zack Snyder. They just gathered what Herodotus just preached. But this Greek historian, it's more than checked and demonstrated. It's more than proved that the information he gathered is based mostly in rumors. We know that because the sources we have in Persian do not coincide with what the sources in Greek by Herodotus say. And of course we have to admit that the Persians were not going to speak poorly about Xerxes either. I mean, yeah, but still, the level of creativity, the spices added by Herodotus, they were great, they were massive. And of course, those, for people that deemed convenient to have that terrible fame around the figure of Xerxes, they just made it bigger. They made it larger. And one of the people who hated Xerxes the most was Alexander the Great. Alexander did not like Xerxes at all, not the slightest. Alexander was a very big fan of Cyrus the Great, and to him, he was the truly genuine Achaemenid king. That was it. But for some reason, he despised Xerxes massively. It was ridiculous how much he disliked him. Fortunately, one may think that now, oh, she's back. Oh, hello, Sombra. Now you might think that today, since we know most of the things the Greeks recorded and gathered about Xerxes is wrong, we'll be over that, right? Wrong, and this is the reason I am here. We don't know. Xerxes is just still considered to be very, very... I'm not going to say the word I want to say because I am a family-friendly channel. I know I don't want Twitch to censor me, but, you know, just not the nicest person ever existed. And this is my contribution to see if we can balance a little bit what we know about Xerxes, which is a historical character with the same amount of light and shadow as most characters in history have, but the ups and downs of Xerxes are much more balanced than we might think at first. And I said that already. I like him. I like him quite a lot. Zack Snyder. That was actually a good one. So, as I was saying, around 518, Xerxes makes his great entrance into the world. And here we're gonna talk about something I really, really enjoy. You already know about this. If you came to the stream about the royal hunt in Assyria, you know already how much I enjoy the education and bringing up of princes. I don't know particularly why. I just don't know. I have no answer for that. So, do you remember in that stream we talked about the hard training and the discipline the Assyrian princes were exposed to since very, very young. So the Persians kept the tradition of raising their kids, you know, the hard way. They needed to know the hard way of life because it just pain makes you grow up into a better ruler, I think. I don't know, I have no idea, but don't worry, it's not just about hitting and beating the crap out of each other. No, it's not just about that. There's much more to it. The Persian princes, they received what was considered at the time the most exquisite education of ever existed. The Persians. And I am not making this up. I know what at that moment, even just take aside, let's put aside for a moment how Greeks and Persians thought of each other, not important, but how the way the Persians brought up the princes was highly deemed in the time, very, very high. How was this? How was the system? Well, up to 5, when they were from 0 to 5 years old, they lived in the women's quarters in the palace with the mom, and then party was over. It was like just the relaxing life was over. And I remember when we watched the 300 that the Spartans kind of rejoiced themselves, claiming that had this super strict and hard training because they sent their kids to whatever snowy mountain there is in Sparta for them to kill wolves with their hands, but it's not the bare hand. The kid had a spear, right, or something. I think a spear or a sword or something. The Persian princes laugh at their faces with zero education. These Persian princes were woken up at dawn and then they had to run what appears to be the quantity of 8 kilometers, because I cannot think of a better way of starting your day as a 7-year-old, but just run 8 kilometers like you have something chasing you. And after it came the time of classes, like theoretical and theoretical classes all day. They studied law, maths, and of course they were taught how to read and how to write. And they had vocal instructors, as in people trained the princes to know how to modulate the voice and how to act and how to properly speak in front of other people. Without having a shower, I have no idea, but I hope, because a sweaty teenager is a thing to be worried about. That is a very good question. And then afterwards, it came the weapon and martial training, especially the spear, the bow, fundamental, the bow in Persian, like Iranian culture, the bow on top of the horse, you know, bow on land, bow on top of a horse, super important. Swords, and I think they teach them how to box too, how to wrestle. And apparently, according to what sources says, they were submerged in very cold water because that just brought up the spirit of a good leader, I don't know. And they were sometimes, they were incorporated to the hunting parties with their fathers, and they went out into the wilderness to hunt. And sometimes another good exercise to teach them leadership was to make them the head of a tiny group of teenagers, just normally sons of nobles and generals, around 50 of them, and they were sent out and they had to accomplish some kind of mission, some kind of task, and the prince, the crown prince, was the one in charge of all of them. So they had to they have to learn how to rule, how to administrate, and how to govern over people. So yeah, impressive. What else? Oh, I mean, of course, absolutely. That the sources say that Xerxes was just excellent in all these activities. But I don't know how excellent would I be after, I don't know, a month, the 5th week, when I will be just trying not to die with every breath that entered my lungs because I cannot have a royal nap as royally corresponds to me. And I said this on the other live stream, but I think this is good material for a novel. I'm not even kidding with this. So if somebody out there wants to just take the hint, I'm just throwing it to you. Write a novel about a prince brought up in the 6th century before Common Era in Iran. I will be here waiting for it and delighted to read it. And this is where I just clap until my fingerprints are just deleted. These students studied history, their own history, the history of the Achaemenid Empire, I guess. That was a cherry on top of everyone else. And the people in charge of raising and educating the princes were the Magi, the Zoroastrian. Oh my God, I think this is so cool. The Zoroastrian priests, well, then it's not Zoroastrianism, it's Mathian priests, but we're not going to dive into that because that is a matter for another live stream, the differences between Mathdeism and Zoroastrianism. So I will say Zoroastrianism from now on, just to for all terms and purposes it works. But these priests were in charge of educating the princes, and we know of princesses being educated as well. Like, that's basically. What do you tell me, Aaron? Do we have documents about what they were actually learning, like historical topics or things like that? In the field of history, actually, I am not sure, because a lot of these documents, how do we know this? Mostly because of the tablets that are preserved in Persepolis, but I think it's up to 80 something percent, like an amazing amount of tablets are still to decipher, to read, to transcribe, to translate. So we know they study history, but me personally, right now, at the top of my head, I cannot think of it. And I am unsure. I am not sure. I'm really sorry. I can make a live stream about this, but I need to study a lot, because still there's a lot of things we're not sure yet. Because one of the few good things that the massive fire at Persepolis, thank you for that, Alexander, had, was that the tablets, as they were made on clay, hardened much more, and they are better preserved than in any other case. Which is, I refused to say thank you to Alexander for burning Persepolis. So no, but you know what I mean, like that. I'm actually, I'm an art historian, and in this stream we're going to focus a lot in art and the representation of Achaemenid kings. And the first, I know you like these kind of things, so the first image for me to show you, do I need to move? yeah, a little bit. The first image we have here, it's a relief. This is not Xerxes, this is Darius the First. And this image is very important. This is currently at the Archaeological National Museum of Tehran and belongs to a very big panel. And this is Darius receiving somebody in an audience. It's a royal audience. And this is a very important image because Darius, although now the academia is kind of agreed that the founder of the Achaemenid dynasty was Cyrus the Great, Darius was actually the first one who put like the foundation stones of a lot of things where Darius deeds, and was there was something he did, and one of them is the way kings presented themselves, the iconography of kings, which is super interesting, and I want to walk you through it because if you guys want, I invite you to just open a browser and look at how Xerxes looks in the 300. And we can compare. I didn't bring an image of Rodrigo Santoro with me. I didn't. I know him in my mind quite well, but it's a little different, isn't it? So, as I was saying, Darius set the model of a lot of the Achaemenid king, the type, just the trope of the Achaemenid king was embodied by this representation of him. And this is because all the kings that came after wanted to be represented like him. So what do we have here? What is actually what we got? First of all, and the thing that makes me laugh the most when thinking about the 300 is the hair. If you see up here, this hair of Darius is actually very close to mine because it's long and it's curly, and those curls will be carefully brushed and just put in place to create beautiful hairstyles. Also, goes without saying that the Achaemenid kings did not have a crown as we understand the crown, as in, like, you know, the spiky golden-ish crown that we see in medieval kings, for example. No, they were more like a hat or like a piece, like a headpiece, like that one, or a tiara even. But no, we can consider this a crown, of course, but it's not. When I say crown, I don't want you to think about the classic crown that's like, what is that, Kiwi? The best part about the 300 is the Persian king with the shaped hair. Exactly. This is something that drives me absolutely nuts because it's so funny, as in really, why did you choose to shave entirely a Persian king? Well, the eyebrows stay, but I think that's the only inch of hair he still has in his body. I don't know. So, things this king has. Also, the beard. The beard was a matter of high importance among the Persians, and they had private and particular hairdressers to take care of it. And the beards will be possibly perfumed with some kind of essence or oils, and they would be decorated with tiny beads or golden pieces, just like include. Do you remember how Jack Sparrow wore his, I don't know if it's a goatee, but you know, that kind of thing, but that bob with a shower and with some soap in it. And also the king is normally going to be represented as the biggest figure in the picture. That's it. And how do we know? If we have still some doubts about who is the king, he's going to be just holding two things. One is a flower, and the other one is this kind of stuff, which is the ruling stuff. About the flower, in the last stream I said it was not, well, this still remains. It's not a lotus flower, because a lot of people actually say lotus, but it's not a lotus flower. I said on the last live stream that it was a nilufar, which is oh, how do you say nilufar in English? Can you guys look it up for me? I actually just forgot that word in English. Not nilufar. How is it in Spanish? Nenufar. Do we say lotus? I don't think so, because they're two different things. Can you actually quick do a search for me, because I genuinely forgot. Water lily. Typhoon and Kiwi, you speak Persian like I do. Is it water lily? Is the nilufar a water lily? We'll go. Yeah? Is it okay? That's thank you. So yeah, water lily. I just forgot completely. I remember the Persian and the Spanish, but I could not remember that one. So I said it could be a water lily because the lotus flower belongs to India and to the southeast of Asia more than it belongs to Iran. However, yeah, Nilufar is a woman's name in Iran. It's very beautiful. And however, in Iran, it's not that common, at least not now, and not back in the day. However, I was reading more into this lately, and apparently the flower from the pomegranate tree looks a lot like this one. Like a lot. You can Google it if you want to. It's a pomegranate tree, and the shape of the flower is very close to this one. So I don't know if that is published. I read it from a professor I follow on Twitter. I know he knows what he's saying, but I cannot recommend to you an article to go check on it. But yeah, apparently it could be a pomegranate flower, which if you ask me, makes entirely sense. But the important, I am not the expert. Yeah, but it's not a lotus. A lotus flower is something else. But I am not the expert. My friend Aina and my friend Lucía are the plant experts. But the important thing is to not mistake this with a lotus and not with the connotations it brings from the southeast of Asia. It's not the same. But yeah, normally Achaemenid kings will be represented holding the flower and the staff of governor. And yeah, in this case, it's sitting because he's receiving people, and still, it will be the biggest figure in the room. We're gonna show you another one. This we know is Xerxes, and you can see here in the picture that a lot of things that I said just are present. Xerxes is the biggest one. It's holding the flower. I know the quality is not fantastic, but it's holding the flower in his hand. Is also covered by these Mary Poppins. It's also covered by these canopy, this kind of umbrella. And also I want you to see that Achaemenid kings are not represented to the eye, to the first sight, are not represented with much richer clothes or something extravagant they wear. The clothing, just the fabric was dyed and it was imprinted with beautiful designs, like geometrical designs. And if we know something about the Persians, is that they loved color. One of the most popular colors was yellow, for example. They really liked yellow, like deep green, blue. They loved dyeing the clothes, and it was such a common practice. It was very widely done. I know if you Google any reenactments or recreations of Persian soldiers, even for Persian kings, you will see the garments are beautifully adorned, because that was trendy. So also bear in mind, these kind of reliefs, this is in Persepolis, these kind of reliefs were painted. They were covered in paint, but it's not preserved to this day. Do not imagine for a second Persepolis being as grey as limestone is. Hell no. Color. It was a festival of color. So yeah, that is what I wanted. I just wanted to tell you, I am an art historian and I am going to orient this towards the arts, because I think there's so much still to know, and sometimes this is not explained in universities. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I wasn't told these kind of things about the Achaemenid kings or the way they represented themselves. It's actually tricky to identify some of the kings if we don't have an inscription, because again, as I said, they all wanted to be represented like the great Darius. All of them. So if you actually go to Persepolis, it looks like it's just the same king repeated over and over and over, but that is due to two reasons. The first one you already know, they wanted to look like Darius, and the second is the fashion was more or less the same, with the beard and the hair style and the kind of tiara, crown, to understand ourselves. It reminds me a lot, because I was asked on another stream, I wasn't taught about the Achaemenids at all. Whoops! I was asked the other stream, and I want to answer this question in case you were thinking of it or what you were thinking, but it's interesting. They used wigs and they used fake beards. Have you watched The Life of Brian, when they go to this stoning and they have to wear fake beards because they're not allowed to go there because they're women? Just imagine something like that. Apparently that trend was Persian. So yeah, I think it's something quite fun. I don't know why I laugh, but I think it's something quite fun. I had like a couple of lessons about Mesopotamia, and that's all. Well, at least you had something. I had a couple of lessons about Mesopotamia, but we didn't touch Iran until like never. And here I am, a handful of years, I'm not going to say how many, but a handful of years after. Moving on, we are going to talk now about the accession, the ascending of Xerxes to the throne, because boy, that was a ride. So Darius I was designated by, Darius designated Xerxes personally, but he was not, the crown was not meant for him. And this is because he was not the eldest, and there were all the brothers he had, because apparently Darius had like a zillion of kids, and he was not the eldest. But what Xerxes had was the perfect combination of bloodline, because his mom was Atossa, and Atossa was a widow of Cambyses and the widow of Bardia. And on top of everything, if we could add more to it, Atossa was the daughter of Cyrus himself. So basically, Xerxes turned out to be the grandson of the most important person in the world for the Persians at that moment. However, even though these things of the bloodline being super important and super crucial, it was not just enough. It was not enough for Xerxes just going around saying, oh, I am the grandson of Cyrus the Great, so just pass me the tiara, I am king of kings now. No. Xerxes, like any other prince, had to prove he was worth the throne. And here is where the party starts, because this was agitated. Apparently, Xerxes was a person with temper and with things and goals set in life, as in, know what I'm saying? So eventually he resulted victorious, and he had one of his greatest enemies in the fight for the throne of Darius was Artaxerxes, who he was his elder brother, and Xerxes was assisted by a Spartan king that was called Demaratus. And in the end, eventually, after all that, Xerxes reached the throne at the age of 36. Not bad. Not bad. Do you want to know something very funny? Very funny. Rumor has it that for the Greeks, the trousers the Persians wore seemed like a little bit of effeminate. Like they thought of the trouser as a feminine thing, and they did not understand why the Persians wore the trousers. Which, if you ask me, is a little stupid, taking into account the amount of time you can spend on top of a horse. But hey, who am I to judge? Who am I to judge? And do you want to know what else was said about Xerxes? The people that were with me know already. But, and I am not making this up, rumor has it, Xerxes was extremely handsome. He was very, very pretty. A beautiful boy. And here I just brought this one because I think this is fantastic. Excuse that crown bought in, I don't know, Wish or something. But this is supposed to be Xerxes in the 2006 film One Night with the King, which I will talk a little further just in a couple of minutes. But yeah, I just chose this because to me, Xerxes looks fantastic in this film. You know how much I like this. I think he looks beautiful. And yeah, apparently Xerxes was very, very handsome. And this is something we find in both Persian and Greek sources, which is still like, damn it. So yeah. Oh, by the way, I haven't said this is Luke Goss, is the British actor Luke Goss, because there's nothing better in this world than a Xerxes with a British accent, because why not? Absolutely, why not? And yeah, as I was saying, Xerxes was very, very, very beautiful. Like, Apparently, and here is what I want to say, like a tiny big disclaimer, because we need to be very careful with how we read history. You're gonna leave for a moment. Look, Goss, thank you for being here with me. You're gonna come up later, don't worry. So, one of the sources I was using for this live stream was the most known book, Persian Fire, by historian Tom Holland. Persian Fire is a book of notorious importance for Iranian studies, and Tom Holland has a style of writing that you either hate or you either love. I don't think there's any in between for that. I definitely don't think so. And the thing is, sometimes, even without us knowing, we historians as people just transmit onto the paper and onto the books and the ideas we're throwing our own feelings, and it is very tricky because one idea could be read in many different ways. And why am I saying this? Well, talking about the Persians, Tom Holland uses the word obsess. He says, and I quote, they were obsessed with their appearance, which is something a little bit biased and indicates already one of the ideas you have about the Persians as a culture. This is a little bit negative, and it makes the Persians look like something they were not, perhaps. We don't know. I mean, I was not there. Is this me defending the Persians? Of course, that is the reason I am here. But what I mean is that you always should keep a critical eye in everything you read. It doesn't matter it comes with the biggest eminence in the planet. You need to be critical with everything. Because, for example, this sentence could be just reformulated saying that the Persians deemed very important the physical appearance, which was true. It was absolutely true. The appearance and the way they looked was very important for the Iranian society at the time. It was fundamental, but this way you explain the same thing without putting any kind of connotations on plate, like in front of the reader. So, sorry, is that Sombra? She's just super napping right now. It's like the most amazing nap is taking place just down here. I cannot show you because I'm not just going to dismantle this, but just trust me with this. The most amazing dog nap is taking place as we speak. So yeah, that is basically it. Be always critical with whatever you read, and always think that it could happen the other way around. It's the same if I wrote an article and I said a little bit negative things about the Greeks, which I don't have a reason for. By the way, I haven't said this. I love this is the Greek people that study the Greeks, people who prefer the Greeks in ancient history. I am here to love you. I love everybody. We have no hate in this world. This is not a competition between Persians and Greeks. I am so done with that. Like, you have no idea how much I am fed up with that debate or that competition. So I'm just here showing love. I prefer the Persians, I do, but I love the Greeks too. Greece has an amazing culture. What are you talking about? So let's move on into the next point, which is the rebellion. Okay, I have it in my script. So I'm gonna just tiptoe a little bit over the military campaigns of Xerxes, but I'm gonna be quick and I am not gonna be thorough. Why? Because again, this is my live stream and I do whatever I want, basically. But no, on a most serious note, I am a little bit tired of history just being based on military achievements, just the same way after you will just achieve things after you played an online campaign of Age of Empires, and just like I think it's boring. I just can't. I don't see myself studying that way. That is the way I've been studying since I was in high school, and I think is, apart from very, very isolated, like very, very not exactly the way of studying history. I just don't like it personally. So, especially in ancient history, where I don't know why, you might explain this to me, but it appears to like the military achievements are the only thing that is important to study and remember from the ancients. To hell with that. No. But if I am bringing this up, these kind of military achievements from Xerxes, is because it is important. Because Xerxes was a warrior king. That is important just describing his persona. So let's go. When Xerxes rose to the throne, the empire was at the apex of the geographical expansion. I'm gonna show you a map so you can see. Where's my map? Where did I put it? Here it is. I'm just gonna move. This is the Achaemenid Empire when Xerxes was reigning. It is huge. It's massive. It is very, very, very big. So the thing is, this kind of empire, this big empire brings big problems. Just it doesn't come without it. So very short after Xerxes was crowned King of Kings, Shah, which is a very beautiful title, he had to just literally run across the empire to reach Egypt, where a rebellion had started to take place, and apparently it was a serious thing. And why am I saying that? Because Xerxes himself made sure he was at the vanguard of his armies, so he could personally crush the Egyptian rebellion with very little delicacy, if you know what I am saying. And you might think, why would Xerxes do something like that? What is the reason behind it? And this is because he's just been crowned as king. He has to set an example. He needs to gather some fame and propaganda over himself, powerful enough to shut some mouths, to silence some voices, and just to make clear, to show, to prove he was the true and the right heir of Darius. Examples everywhere. Shortly after the rebellion in Egypt, there were 2 rebellions in Babylon, and Xerxes had to come back. I mean, I am still with a map here because can you see over here, you know, me and pointing. Over here is Egypt, and Babylon is more or less here in the middle of the map, like in the very center. It's not a 5-minute ride, if you know what I mean. It's not a 20-minute walk. It is a very long distance from Egypt to Babylon to just crush another rebellion after crushing a former one, because people are just, you know, uprising against you. So it is a massive distance, and the armies were a little bit tired. But the thing is, well, actually, there were 2 rebellions in Babylon, but the first one we're not going to cover because apparently it was not that important, but the second was. So the second rebellion, and this question is not targeted, but I know Aaron is going to just answer this one. So close. This second rebellion was, it was led by a person named Shamash Eriba. And Shamash is the Mesopotamian god of... Quick, put it in the chat before Aaron does it! You're too late. Doesn't matter. Yes, so Shamash is the Mesopotamian god of the sun. We talked about him, about some of the deities in another video. But yeah, as I was saying, this good fella, this lovely fella, Shamash Eriba, he just thought of himself in a great way, and he conquered the cities of Babylon, Borsippa and Dilbat, and after a very, very long and exhausting siege, Xerxes managed to defeat him. As a curious thing, appears to be one of the motives of Shamash Eriba's revolution, the rise of taxes, which I don't know if it was the only reason for it, or if something was hidden behind it. I always think there was, because if you are to rebel against your king, against your emperor, I mean, you gather one of the 2 motives to do that along the way, right? No? Don't know. So the moment has come to talk about the campaign in Greece. Not because I'm specially fond of it, but because it's very important, it's very relevant for the reign of Xerxes. This military campaign was started actually by Darius, Xerxes' dad, but Xerxes carried on with it. And what happened here was that they wanted to apparently and according to Greek sources, they wanted to punish the Greeks because they took a little bit of advantage in the revolt of Ionia, and they burnt Sardis, which is a city, to the ground, and they wanted also, like, on top of everything, take revenge for the defeat in Marathon, which was a major defeat for the Persians. So Xerxes jumps on a boat and sets off to Greece, where he's entertained by a tiny Spartan Arcadian Greek army. They were not 300, they'd be a little bit, a wee bit more. I mean, for sure, they were outnumbered by the Persians. For sure, there's no doubt onto that. And the part of the Greeks resisted fairly well. They did a good job, but finally, eventually the Persians took over, and where the Greek tiny Greek alliance was defeated, and the Persian army marched to Athens. The good thing that the Thermopylae battle had is that it gave time for the Greek people to be warned of the coming of the Persians, and a lot of places, a lot of cities were emptied and evacuated. However, Athens was captured the same. Super captured, like top of the top capture, and this is not something history books say, I don't know why, but Athens was burned to the ground. It was absolutely devastated by the Persians, just destroyed, and the mess was so big that in German they have their own archaeological category, which is called, I am gonna butcher this one, the Parchesut or something like that, which literally means the Persian ripple. This was the level of destruction the Persians took up on Athens. They were very mad apparently, but after leaving Athens, just I don't even have a word. After that, Xerxes was defeated again in the battles of Plataea and Salamis. So he just turned himself around, just turned heels, and went back to his empire in Iran. And that's it. That's basically what happened in Greece. Now, we reach the key point in the reign of Xerxes, at least for me, as an art historian, and this is his role as a patron of arts. Because of course, fight, yeah, armies, yeah, there's, you know what I always say, people enjoyed being alive. And not just being alive, but to make an imprint in this world, to make an impact, and to just leave a memory that just corroborated and confirmed the life they lived was great, fulfilling, and accomplished. And yeah, in Iran, they did this in a gigantic, colossal way. And I brought some pictures to show you guys of amazing projects Xerxes was patron of. We're gonna start with the most typical and my personal favorite. So here we have it. I mean, we can start talking about lunch right now. Here we have it, my personal favorite, and in my opinion, this is just my opinion, the jewel of the crown in Persian architecture. This is the Gate of All Nations in Persepolis. And I have not words to describe what is it to be in front of it. It is massive, it is impressive, it's breathtaking, and I actually suffered a big episode of Stendhal syndrome when I saw it, because I just couldn't believe it. I just couldn't believe the whole thing, and it's not complete. It's not being preserved complete. So if this was enough to just take my breath away and make my heart skip some beats, just imagine for a second how would it look like at the golden time. It's just, I'm gonna be honest with you, I could just spend the rest of the stream just contemplating the picture and not saying anything, or just saying a lot of things, fangirling over the Gate of All Nations, but there's a lot of things I want to show you, so we're gonna carry on. So the gate, as we call it now, was a major structure, bigger than the one we see, and there were 4 columns that just sustained the roof, and we think the roof was just flat. rewinding, what was I saying? Oh yeah, I was explaining to you how the gate works. So yeah, there were 4 columns and the roof was flat. And inside, not inside, on the outside, like in the, thank you, bye. On the outside, there was a bench that just, like, it just rounded the, it was just a bench made of stone that was just encircle the whole structure. And in that bench, they still allow people to sit nowadays, which infuriates me because you can see, I mean, let's be realistic over here. The preservation state of Persepolis is not great and people do not exactly take care of it as it should. So it's just a matter of time that that bench falls over completely. It's like, because people still sit on that. So I'm just waiting for that to happen and I'm gonna be mad, but you know, humanity is humanity and they do these kind of things. So yeah, and this bench was interrupted in the thresholds of the doors, and these thresholds were in the size east, west and south. The south threshold, the south opening, leaded to the just was turned towards the Apadana. The west is this one we see with the gigantic Assyrian Lamassu, which are spectacularly big. You cannot picture in your head, well, if you have been there you can, but you cannot picture in your head how big this is. I felt tiny, very tiny close to it. And oh, and let me tell you, all of this was decorated until reaching the brain collapse. Like, there was a lot of decoration over there, glazed bricks, painting. The walls were just covered in colorful designs. This is the, oh, of course there were some kind of pieces, metallic pieces added to it just for more impact. Do not imagine Persepolis like this. Do not. It was colorful. It was a festival of colors, a bursting, an insane bursting of colors of all the combinations. And for what we know, apparently the favorite colors were blue, yellow, and sometimes a little bit green. Red was very popular too. So yeah, just colors, a lot of colors, like Cyndi Lauper's album, Colors. Show your true colors, Persepolis. But this is not the only thing we have. We're gonna move into the next one, which is the whole of 100 columns. I love this bowl. By the way, if you do a quick search on the internet, you will see, unfortunately, a lot of these ones identified as horses. How do you mistake these animals for a horse? It's a bull, for hell's sake. You could, like, even, sorry, that off topic, I'm coming back to what we're saying. So this whole of 100 columns is not the Apadana, is something different. And this was the hall where the throne was, and it was impressive. But turns out, with the passage of time, ooh, thank you for the follow. It turns out that with the passage of time, it became an extension of the treasury, because the treasury was very tiny. Apparently it was not enough to hold all the riches from the Achaemenid Empire, and they had to extend and occupy the whole of 100 columns as a new treasury. A treasury, by the way, that also Xerxes completed and was patron of. Then we have the Apadana, which is the, I don't have a picture of the Apadana itself because I don't like the pictures I found, but I brought here something very interesting too, which is a column. It's a Persian capital. This is one of the columns that you can find in the Apadana, which again, it was the audience hall. These are incredibly tall. These are incredibly tall, and they are thoroughly decorated with a bunch of magical creatures. These are the bulls, but we also have lions. We have composite animals. We're not sure what they are. And do you see? Just say yes or no, because I know I can point over there. You know, where the moment this is the area where the two bulls connect. There's a space over there, kind of like a square space. Do you see it over there? And this is where the major structure of the ceiling was just it was supported by it, which means these are big as hell. You cannot imagine how big they are. When you go to Persepolis, they have one of these, some like one or two of them, they fall in and they are just put on the right way, but they are on the ground, the capital. And I cannot even show you that you didn't fit. So how big was the structure these things had to support? It is amazing. And the Apadana was also for receiving and exchanging gifts. And if you know, the Apadana is where all this massive procession of the different provinces of the empire paying tribute to the King of Kings in the festival of Nowruz, which, if you are following the reading of the Book of Kings, you know already what it is, but I'm just going to do a quick recap, is the Iranian New Year, which is still celebrated, by the way. What else? I'm just going to leave this one here because I don't have pictures for the next ones, but I just want to leave it this one here. All the construction that Xerxes was taking part of is the Tachar, or the winter palace of Darius. It was started by Darius, but Xerxes completed it. The treasury, the royal road, and the palace of Xerxes. And it was the palace of Darius, but you know, Darius passed away and Xerxes took over the construction, and this was the palace in Susa, where we have one of the most important and famous representations of Persian art Iranian, we can say Iranian, which are the immortals. These are actually the immortals. And I want to tell you something that you may not know. The immortals were called the apple bearers. And this is because if you see the spear they're carrying, down in the very extreme, down below in the extreme, there's a tiny ball. Can you see it? It's a metallic sphere that looked like an apple, and this acts as a counterweight for the rest of the spear because they were massive and they were heavy. So they needed a counterweight so they would be manageable. Where are the Persian ninjas in the film of the 300, I am afraid? So yeah, the immortals were the personal god of the King of Kings, and one of the most important divisions inside the military. And yeah, as you can see, they looked like a very complete warrior in the sense they're carrying a spear, they're carrying a bow, they're carrying a quiver, and most probably they knew how to ride. And here is a very good moment to take a look at what I was saying before about the patterns in clothing. You can see the amazing and impressive detail in color, and in just not just color but in the pattern. This is glazed brick, and they took the effort to represent almost exactly what it looks like. And yeah, as you can see, yellow is a popular color. You can see the shoes. And do you see the tiny apple over there? Just at the tip of my finger, this is the apple, and this is the reason they were called the apple bearers. Did you know that fact? I'm very happy if I introduce you to it. I mean, the immortals were cool enough, but now come on. All right, let's just dive into it a little bit for why Susa is important. Susa was the capital of Elam, and it was a strategic point because it occupies, again, a strategic place between Iraq and Iran. And I cannot start describing how impressive Susa was at the time. There was not a city like Susa in the whole East, like the Near East. Susa was such like how to describe this? It was the biggest urban center, and it was thoroughly, profusely decorated with palaces, with temples, with administrative buildings. It was insane. Anything very, very, I'm not going to make justice to what I say to Susa, especially because the remainings are very few and the state of preservation is to cry on. But yeah, Susa is such an important city. I think I'm going to talk about Susa one day with you guys because I really want you to know it. So nothing that I say is going to make justice to it. But yeah, it was impressive. And last but not least, we have the tomb of Xerxes in Naxxar-Rustam. Fun fact about this tomb is that we don't know if it was actually Xerxes' tomb, because it's not identified. We do know, I mean, apparently we're quite sure, but at first it was not known. We thought that it was Xerxes because it imitates almost exactly Darius's tomb. So that makes sense, because it's the only one that's not identified in the necropolis. These, I was going to just crop the picture because I want a closer detail to show to you, but I want you to look at how ridiculously high this is. This is at the top of a mountain, and this is a tomb. You see the entrance, and apparently this looks like a Mazdian sanctuary, like a shrine, which is impressive. And Naksha Rustam was actually one of the most impressive sites, archaeological sites I've ever seen in my life. It's, again, I don't have words. I'm sorry for saying that, but I don't have words. It is impressive. It was, for me, it was breathtaking and such an amazing discovery. I knew of it, of course, but I always seen it in pictures. And then when you go there and you put it in perspective and you see yourself in front of those incredible tombs and you see how tiny you are compared to them, it's crazy. It is actually insane. And something that the tomb of Xerxes has is a tiny hint of the variety of people living in the Persian Empire and the Achaemenid Empire. Whoop! I have no idea who made this image, but I am entirely grateful. I found it on Wikipedia. This is the tomb of Xerxes with soldiers that formed his army, and every soldier comes from a different province. We have Sogdian, Bactrian, Horashmian, Egyptian, Nubian. We have a lot of them, just to name a few, and it is impressive because these shows how mixed and varied was the Achaemenid Persian Empire at the time of Xerxes, and we know it was during the rest of the time of the Achaemenid kings. But this is impressive. Like, look at them. They are not. You have the Medes, you have the Persians, because Medes and Persians are not the same, by the way. It is just incredible. It is very incredible. I am mind blown by this, honestly. Yeah. So I wanted to show you that tiny detail, and I cannot explain to you how impressive was the Achaemenid code. The level of sophistication that was reached in the time of Xerxes. Nothing like that was seen at the moment. The level of arts and crafts that were produced, the libraries, the buildings, the commercial routes, everything. And I read, I didn't hear of it. I read that on Twitter. Someone said that if Darius was a Greek king, we'll still be going over how big he was, the same way we go over how big Alexander the Great is. And he was absolutely right. And it's not just about Darius, it's about Xerxes, Artaxerxes, Cambyses II. All of them created an empire like very few were known to the ancient world. And everything, bear in mind, this is before Alexander, like 200 years before Alexander. And we have a hint, a taste of how varied the whole empire was, and I am just impressed. I am just impressed at these kind of court being so unknown to the Western history, because it was the cradle of a lot of sophisticated things. And I don't know. Am I fangirling? Possibly, but this is what we came here for. Yeah. Oh yeah, I said that I will talk about the story of Esther in the Bible. So just a quick bird's eye view of it. Xerxes is actually the king that's always been associated with Esther. Esther is a biblical character that marries the Persian king Ahasuerus, or so the book says. And the story is an explanation for a festival of Purim, which is like a carnival for the Jews, and apparently is very, very important for the Jewish culture. And Esther, and how wholehearted she was as the savior of the Jews of her kingdom, has made her into history like one of the most positive characters you can extract from the Bible, because she is the one who convinces Ahasuerus to not slaughter all the Jews. Actually, the story then goes the other way around, and the Jews are the ones who slaughter some other people. But again, this is covered in the film I showed you before. Let's just put him again here. Hello, look, Goss, where are you? Looking pretty. There we go. This film, as I was saying, is called One Night with the King and covers the story of Esther. And in the film, the king is called Xerxes directly, so it's just addressed as Xerxes, which is actually it's very fun. If you want me to watch it and to comment it with you, like we did with the 300, let me know. Just let me know. I am here to please you most of the time. So the thing is, the story of Xerxes being Ahasuerus is unlikely, highly unlikely. And this is because the Achaemenid kings married just among a tiny, very reduced group of families in the Achaemenid court, and to my knowledge, none of them were Jewish. Not for a particular reason, just they were probably Mazdian or Mazdian cult. And Xerxes' wife is Amestris, which is such a lady. It's like the Beyonce of the Achaemenid Empire. One day I will talk about Amestris. I'm just promising a lot of things. Could I just hold to this? Bye, look, Ghost, it's been a pleasure. I'm just promising a lot of things and I'm not seeing any feedback, so maybe I won't. I don't know. So, how did Xerxes meet his end? The thing, the topic about how Xerxes died, I covered it in the stream about Assassin's Creed, because Assassin's Creed Odyssey just treated it in an awful way. But I'm going to tell you right now the real story, and I'm just going to try not to be mad. So in 465, there's two characters of importance. One is Artabanus and the other one is called Aspamites. The former is a captain of the elite guard of Xerxes, and the latter, is a eunuch. They just conspire against the king and they end up murdering him. And the thing is, Artabanus had everything carefully planned to allocate his 7 sons in strategic position to destroy the Achaemenid dynasty. He did not want to save Persia or something, as Ubisoft wants to convince us of. And this is basically after this is the mess, because we don't know exactly what happened there. Apparently, Aristotle says that Artabanus first killed Darius, who was the first son of Xerxes, and then Xerxes himself, and then Artaxerxes, which is the next in the line of in the line of succession. When they meet, Artaxerxes rises against him and kills him and his 7 sons. But Ctesias, who is another Greek historian, says that no, that actually Artabanus killed Xerxes and then convinced Artaxerxes to kill Darius, his elder brother, and because he convinced him he was actually guilty for his father's death. And then Artaxerxes kind of, I don't know what happened there, but Artaxerxes, something happened there, the thing is, Artabanus ends up dead, and you can just imagine how none of these versions brings it's a good end to Artabanus. Ubisoft, if you're hearing me. So yeah, I don't see the need for that. I honestly don't see the need for that. So, in conclusion, because yes, I brought my conclusions, Xerxes was a great king. And nobody remembers him as a great king because he lost some battles to the Greeks. And this is not to diminish the importance of said battles. They were important, of course, but as a king, when you are judging a king, this is my point of view personally, you should look into much more than just battles, where they won or where they lost. And Xerxes just settled the foundations of an empire that was at the very early stages of it. It was at the very early stages of its formation. He improved everything his father Darius did, because a historical character, at least in my opinion, is not more important because they invented something. Maintaining something and making it work is actually a task. It's a titanic task, and Xerxes did it. Persepolis and Susa are examples, and I am the first one who has a good laugh with the 300, and again, you have to be very handsome to be looking that good as Xerxes does. So shout out to Rodrigo Santoro from here. And those are just comics, graphic novels, series, whatever you may like. History actually goes beyond that, and we should worry about knowing of it a little bit. So as I said in the other stream, Xerxes, it doesn't matter if I'm alone with this. I love you a lot. We're finished. We're actually finished here. We finished talking about one of the greatest kings in the Achaemenid dynasty, which in my opinion was Xerxes. And yeah, I hope I contributed a little bit on just bringing to you a nicer view of one of the worst treated characters in the Achaemenid dynasty. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed the ride. I certainly did. I really wanted to talk about Xerxes for a very long time, and finally my patrons wanted to do so. So yeah, it's been a pleasure being with you guys here. Don't worry, next week we will go back to Monday. And yeah, again, and as I always say, thank you for all the people new here. Welcome to this stream. We talk about Iran and Mesopotamia here, and we do it regularly, and I am very I'm very happy to see that we are still growing very tinily, but you know, slowly but steadily. And yeah, thank you so much to my patrons. Thank you for your support. I wouldn't be here without you. You are my biggest support, and of course I wouldn't be here without you guys who follow all these streams and are loyal to these to the date. I'm really happy you enjoyed it, and again, if you're gonna follow up, you can follow Las Plumas de Simur over social media, especially on Twitter is where I am more active. And if you want to join in the coming up, just take a look at the social media to get further notice. And that's it for me. I really hope you have a fantastic week, and I don't know where you are physically, but be it hot or cold, I just want you, I wish a very nice cup of tea to your hand right now. And as always, it's been a real pleasure, and I will see you guys shortly soon. I am very happy of being here, like always. Stay safe and be very happy. See you next time. Bye guys.